recovered what we believe is the weapon that was used in the shooting. It is a high-powered bolt-action rifle. That rifle was recovered in a wooded area where the shooter had fled. So the FBI laboratory will be analyzing this weapon.
When authorities presented their evidence to the public, they displayed a Mauser .30-06 rifle, claiming it was found discarded with a single-fired cartridge in the chamber and 3 unused rounds in the magazine. Officials declared this to be the murder weapon, yet the projectile recovered from Charlie Kirk's body has never been publicly confirmed to match this particular firearm. This represents a fundamental problem in the investigation. Ballistic analysis operates on a straightforward principle. Each bullet bears distinctive markings from the barrel through which it traveled. When a projectile and firearm fail to show matching characteristics, the weapon in question cannot be considered the actual instrument used in the crime. Without establishing this crucial link, the rifle becomes merely an exhibit rather than definitive evidence, leaving critical questions unanswered. The medical professional who attempted to save Charlie Kirk provided the public with our first concrete fact. A bullet had indeed caused the fatal injury. Yet what should have established the foundation for a clear investigation has instead generated more confusion, as the projectile description doesn't align seamlessly with the rifle later presented by investigators as the murder weapon. When the initial evidence doesn't correlate properly, it raises serious concerns about what additional information might be concealed or overlooked. This case extends beyond identifying the shooter. It involves examining every institution that failed to demand answers to the most fundamental question: does the recovered bullet actually match the presented firearm? Until this question receives proper attention, justice remains neither delayed nor delivered. It's completely absent. The first reliable information in this case didn't originate from investigators or officials at press conferences. It came from a physician, someone who examined Charlie Kirk and confirmed an undeniable reality: a bullet had caused fatal trauma to his body. This represented fact, not speculation. This should have been the starting point for seeking justice. Then came the rifle presentation. A Mauser .30-06 exhibited to the public like evidence of resolution, announced as the murder weapon before anyone addressed the essential question: does the bullet correspond to this gun? If the projectile doesn't match the rifle, what other aspects of the official account might be inaccurate? This isn't merely about physical evidence, it's about institutional silence. The kind of silence that should provide clarity but instead generates suspicion rather than certainty. Each time we accept this silence, each time we look elsewhere, we allow another piece of truth to remain buried alongside the victim. Consider this: if both the bullet and rifle were genuine evidence, why hasn't anyone demonstrated they belong together? Shortly after the medical confirmation, attention shifted to a different element: the firearm. Authorities announced discovering a Mauser .30-06 bolt-action rifle abandoned in woodland near Utah Valley University. They presented it not as a potential lead, but as a definitive solution, as though the mystery concluded when the weapon was brought to light. The chamber contained one spent shell casing. The magazine held 3 unfired rounds. Scattered in the vicinity were bullet casings bearing disturbing inscriptions, messages suggesting this act was premeditated and designed for maximum impact. To observers, these details created an impression of certainty. They indicated, this was the weapon, this was the killer's instrument, this marked the end of the search. But did it really? Despite all the presentation, one crucial element remained unaddressed. A rifle without confirmed ballistic matching to the recovered bullet isn't evidence, it's storytelling. It suggests justice without providing the proof that validates it. Ballistic analysis isn't complex science. Every firearm creates a distinctive signature. Rifling patterns carved into the barrel create unique markings on bullets as they exit. When investigators recover a projectile, they don't need to speculate about which gun fired it. They conduct tests, make comparisons, and when the markings correspond, the evidence provides absolute certainty. Why hasn't this certainty been provided to the public? Why hasn't the fundamental test, bullet to barrel, wound to weapon, been publicly confirmed? This isn't advanced forensic work. It's the basic foundation of ballistic investigation. Yet in this case, we encounter only silence where there should be clarity, quiet where there should be proof. This raises the question: was this test never conducted, or were the results too problematic to disclose? Was it never performed, or are the findings being suppressed? When institutions choose silence over transparency, it represents more than an oversight. It's a systemic failure. A failure that denies the public access to truth, that transforms evidence into performance art. In such failures, justice doesn't thrive, it deteriorates. The public received no shortage of announcements, press briefings, headlines, and official statements celebrating the rifle's recovery. Photos circulated showing agents transporting it through the forest, officials making solemn statements, reporters repeating the phrase, "The murder weapon has been located." Notice what wasn't communicated. Notice the silence surrounding the single fact that should have mattered most: the bullet analysis. If the evidence truly connected, if testing had been completed and the markings had aligned, wouldn't this have been prominently announced? Wouldn't that have been the headline, the reassurance, the proof everyone needed? Instead, we were presented with carefully managed theater, a weapon displayed as if its mere presence could eliminate the questions that followed. But institutions rarely present truth in its unfiltered form. More commonly, they shape it, refine it, and deliver only what maintains their control. Every time we accept this silence, every time we accept the narrative we're given without question, we allow another truth to perish with the victim. A bullet represents more than a piece of metal. It's the connection between a lost life and finding accountability. In this situation, it's the sole physical link that can connect Charlie Kirk's death to the weapon authorities claim was used. Without this confirmation, everything else becomes assumption, everything else becomes narrative construction. Here we stand. A doctor confirms the bullet, a rifle gets displayed, but the connection between them never receives public verification. This absence doesn't merely weaken the case, it questions the entire account. If the bullet doesn't match, what other elements fall apart? Was there another weapon involved? Was evidence mishandled? Or worse, was this case predetermined before testing was completed? Each withheld answer erodes trust. Each unconfirmed detail deepens uncertainty. Uncertainty isn't justice. Uncertainty creates a vacuum where truth should exist, where accountability should stand, and where the public should clearly understand how and why a life was taken. Until this vacuum fills with proof, we're left only with silence. And in cases like this, silence communicates everything. Responsibility in this case doesn't rest with a single individual. It extends across multiple levels. Investigators responsible for collecting evidence, forensic teams entrusted with analysis, and officials charged with presenting truth to the public. Each step carries significance. Each role bears weight. Yet when the most basic test remains incomplete or unannounced, responsibility shifts from one shooter to an entire system. History demonstrates what occurs when institutions neglect fundamental truths. Forensic failures have dismantled cases, reversed convictions, and exposed extensive networks of negligence. Each time, trust shatters, not because of discoveries made, but because of information concealed. With Charlie Kirk's case, we observe the same pattern emerging. This isn't just about a bullet. It's about every official who chose comfort over clarity, every leader who believed silence was safer than transparency, every decision that replaced proof with performance. When comfort supersedes clarity, justice stops being justice. It becomes theater, a performance staged for cameras while truth remains buried in darkness. From the beginning, one person provided the public with what limited clarity we possess. The doctor in that room, observing what no investigator, reporter, or official could deny, stated plainly, there was a bullet. This wasn't speculation or theory, it was truth spoken in tragedy's rawest moment. What followed was institutional silence. They buried that truth under doubt, paraded a rifle, recited prepared statements, and spoke as though evidence had already rendered its verdict. But it hadn't. The doctor provided public truth, institutions buried it under doubt. Why does a physician's testimony speak louder than ballistic analysis? Why, in a case of such importance, are we left with a wound but no weapon correlation? Why is the most basic evidence, the connection between bullet and barrel, still absent from the story we're told to believe. Here lies the disturbing center of it all. If the bullet doesn't match the rifle, what other aspects don't match the narrative? The bullet should have anchored this case, the single undeniable connection between a lost life and the weapon that caused the injury. Instead, it has become the missing element, a truth acknowledged but never verified, a fact spoken once then consumed by silence. We observed a rifle. We heard about a bullet. But we never received the bridge connecting them. Until this silence breaks, justice remains incomplete. Justice without proof isn't justice, it's performance. And performance, regardless of how convincing, can never substitute for truth. Truth doesn't vanish. It doesn't dissolve. It gets buried. The question we must all consider is straightforward. Who buried it this time? We need to pause here because at this case's center lies a contradiction too significant to ignore. A doctor confirmed a bullet, the most undeniable evidence in any shooting. Yet the rifle displayed to the public as the supposed weapon has never been forensically linked to that bullet. Consider this carefully. The simplest test available, the most fundamental step in any investigation, confirming whether bullet and weapon match, was either never conducted, never announced, or never successful. Here's what should concern everyone. If the connection was solid, wouldn't they have announced it prominently? Wouldn't that result have been the headline, the proof, the closure the public was promised? Instead, we received silence. Silence isn't justice, it's complicity. What does it mean when institutions control the appearance of truth but refuse to confirm the facts supporting it? What does this communicate about the value placed on Charlie Kirk's life and the trust we're expected to have in systems claiming to protect us? Your voice matters because the more we accept silence, the more we participate in that silence. I refuse to let that become this story's ending. Do you believe this represents failure or something more deliberate? Until that question receives an answer, justice for Charlie remains unfinished.